Hello everyone. I'm hitting a milestone this morning, day 900 in a row, walking 5 miles per day, every single day at age 67 and a half. And also last night I did my 4,037th push-up since July the 1st. It's insane. I got a quote for you today by Douglas Adams. I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I think I ended up where I needed to be. I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I think I ended up where I needed to be. I'm gonna get a little bit personal here to drive this one home. In 2017, things sort of fell apart. I ended up living in my car for 3 days. And I had a decision to make. Was I gonna be homeless? Or was I gonna call my mother and ask if I could live with her for a little while? Now, you have to understand, my mother and I did not get along my entire life. We fought like cats and dogs. You know, whether it's true or not, I perceived her preferring my brother over me. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. They did things with him that they never did with me. But this is not a blame game. This is not. And the story ends sort of good. So I put my tail between my legs and went and moved in with her. I ended up staying there for 3 years. Now, it was difficult. I'm not lying. I worked a lot, and I worked a lot on purpose. I just didn't want to be there. And one thing that she told me growing up that I always remembered was, please don't put me in a nursing home. Please don't put me in an assisted living. I want to die in my house. Well, she was 90 when I moved in. Well, in August of 2020, she had, well, no, it was August of 2020. She had an episode in her house, and we called the paramedics, and she never went back home. And I had a job as an independent contractor. That's most of the jobs I've had in the last 15 years or so have been independent contractor jobs. So they're very, very flexible. So I took time off and I sat in the hospital with her, I think for 5 days. She was in kidney failure. She was 93 at the time, and she was in kidney failure. And I sat beside her bell to bell. And basically they weren't feeding her and they weren't giving her anything to drink. They were just basically starving her to death. I mean, that's the way I perceived it. So as she was getting weaker and weaker and weaker, one day before they moved her to another room, I went over to her and I said, you know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't get along any better than we did, but I love you, Mom. And that's probably the only time in my entire life I told her that. And she stroked my hand. She couldn't even talk anymore. They had her vented. She stroked my hand and she cried. They moved her to another room, and I was sitting with her, and she stopped breathing. So I hit the emergency button. The nurses came crashing in there, and were doing their thing, and all of a sudden my mother took a deep breath, and the nurse, it was so funny, the nurse jumped out of her skin because she thought she was gone too. Probably a half a day later, she took her last breath, and I was sitting right there. I lost my job over it, but that's okay. There's always another job. I'm videoing, don't pay me any attention. I'm videoing. Yes. So I guess the moral of this story is, you know, I never intended to go live with her. Things just took a turn south. I'd made some huge mistakes and I ended up in my car. And I'm glad it all happened, because I got to spend those last few days with her, and I think she knew in my own way I loved her. I'm not a lovey-dovey guy. My wife will tell you I'm not a lovey-dovey guy, but I am passionate when I feel something about someone, something, and she did her best. I can't sit here and say, well, if she had done this better and you know, preferred my brother over me. No, all that crap's gone. That's neither here nor there anymore. I was with her. She wasn't by herself when she died, and that is where I needed to be. I've got story after story after story, not as powerful as that one, of times where, you know, I had a perfectly good job, something would happen, didn't go Paul's way, Paul would bail, go do something else, and that turned out to be even better. Many, many more times than not, that was the case. So don't get mired up in overthinking your decisions. If something happens, if you end up living in your car for 3 days and you need to go duck your tail between your legs when you're in your late 50s and live with your mother, do it. You know, ego's not going to put food in your belly, and ego is not going to make things better. And that's one thing I hope I don't have, as much of an ego anymore. So keep that in mind. I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I think I may have ended up where I needed to be. There's so much truth in that, and I hope that carries you through the day. Y'all have a great day. Peace.